It's my pleasure to welcome you all for this first webinar of Indian Psychiatric Society, Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence Task Force. I thank our Secretary, Dr. Arvind Brahma, for allotted a time slot for us and also given encouragement to organize this webinar. We all know that artificial intelligence has made a significant impact in the medical field, including the mental health. There are many advances in the digital acquisitions and computing infrastructure. Artificial intelligence applications are expanding the area of screening, diagnosis, treatment, and also rehabilitation aspect of mental health. Hope this today webinar will enlighten us about the utility of machine learning and artificial intelligence in mental health. I request our Dr. Umesh, co-chairperson of IPS Machine Learning and Artificial Task Force, to moderate this session. It's over to you, Dr. Umesh.
Thank you very much, sir. It's very heartening to see everyone on this Sunday morning, and we wish that this program would be a grand success, sir. So we would initially request our Honorable President, sir, Vinay Kumar, sir, to provide your valuable inputs onto the today's session, and we also seek blessings from you because this is our first session, sir, and we hope that we'll be providing justice to the entire society. And sir, kindly grace this occasion, sir.
And most importantly, lots of therapeutic endeavors can be done with the help of AI and machine. So I'm not aware how things are happening. It's new thing. Dr. Chintapanti, Dr. Paneer, Umesh, they are more equipped with knowledge, current knowledge in this. So, and today's speaker, to whom we are going to listen in a couple of moments. So I'm also sitting here as a novice. My worries were worries of an old man, but new era is here with its all colors. We have to witness, we have to learn, we have to enjoy, and we have to look forward how to handle this genius and how to prevent it from being a demon. With this, I congratulate the whole team and wish a program grand success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful wisdom onto this artificial intelligence in the current era. So I think under your leadership, I think we'll try to provide some initial momentum to what the AI or the ML has been looking at the future. How is it going through in the future? So now I request Honorable General Secretary, Dr. Arvind Brahma, sir, to share some valuable input, sir.
Thank you, Umesh. Basically, this artificial intelligence and machine learning task force is very close to my heart because when we are forming the committees, President gave me the permission to form this particular committee. So, as you know, Dr. Praveen, Dr. Paneer, then Umesh, Rajesh, and Prasenjit Ghosh as EC coordinator. So I thought they are the fittest person for this particular task force. As you have mentioned earlier, Umesh, that artificial intelligence and machine learning may be the future of psychiatry, that we cannot deny. Just like now, cultural psychiatry is no longer important in the era of biological psychiatry, but still, we know the value of cultural psychiatry. Similarly, we'll definitely they will do this type of webinars and some physical program also in the coming days, and they will give us good feedback that we can send to the other international organizations also. We can have a collaboration with them, we can have a research collaboration or other things, maybe some international workshops or conference like things also in the coming days. So I think Dr. Praveen, Dr. Paneer, they can think of that in that line also. So I don't want to waste much time because today we have two very important speakers and we want to hear from them. So thank you very much for the invitation. Over to you, Mesh. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your encouraging words. So now I request Professor Om Prakash sir to provide his valuable inputs to for the today's session, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. This is a great committee and with enthusiastic people with Rajarsi, Umesh and Dr. Paneer, and of course EC coordinator Prasenjit, all are very active, and our advisor is also very active, Dr. Praveen.
Thank you very much, sir, for your blessings. So with this, we start with the today's session. We have two eminent chairperson for the today's session, Professor Basib Das sir, who is Director CIP, and Ruksheda Sayeda madam, who is our chairperson for the today's session. So before we could go ahead with the presentation, sir, Professor Basib Das sir has done his MD Psychiatry from CIP Ranchi, and he has guided more than 100 theses, and he has more than 70 publication, and sir has more than 5 extramural projects, and one of the recent projects is on artificial intelligence. So sir would be speaking more about his experiences, sir. So sir, please provide your valuable inputs onto the today's session, sir. Vasudev sir, over to you.
Without wasting any further time, I would like to request the speakers who are very eminent one, and they are working in this field. Dr. Noorul Hasan will be speaking on the AI particularly and its application in our field. And Dr. Lekhansh will be speaking on the models of AI, ML, and its application. So now I request my co-chair, Dr. Ruksheda, to introduce the speakers.
You are well known among us. Madam is there, Madam Ruksheda Sayeda, who is a consultant psychiatrist and psychotherapist. She is well known among all of us. She is the founder of Trellis Family Center. She is the specialty she deals with are adolescents, young adults, women and families. Designations: General Secretary, Indian Association of Biological Psychiatry, President-elect, Bombay Psychiatric Society, Co-Chair, Women and Mental Health, Indian Psychiatric Society, Executive Council Member, Indian Association of Private Psychiatry, and training is in Lokmanya Tilak Municipal Medical College and KM Hospital, Mumbai. She is the author, media expert of TEDx speaker. Her passion project is YAMI, a support group of young adults. Madam, taking aside of the topic, if you can just tell us a few words about YAMI. What is this support group for young adults? Just a few words.
YAMI stands for Young Adults for Mental Health, mental illnesses. It is a support group, like I said, like it suggests. We started pre-COVID, so we started an in-person session, but right after, within a few months, COVID hit, so we went online. We meet every second and fourth Sunday. It's online. It's a fluid and free group. We have a community where we post the link, and a lot of people join in. It's only for people between 18 and 30 years of age. We usually pick a topic to talk about that the young people might want to be interested in, anything from wellness to illness. And it's something that a lot of us have volunteered to do, and we continue to keep doing it. So yes, it's definitely a passion project, but it also is very, very rewarding. So anybody is interested in just, letting your clients and patients know about this, thank you so much for that, because it's something that we are doing purely for altruistic purposes and for awareness of mental health. You're on mute, Dr. Rajshri.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful introduction. May I now hand over to the chairperson one for introduction of the speakers and a subsequent flowchart.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm going to start again, and I acknowledge all of the seniors and my teachers who continue to teach me in the audience and today. Definitely a salute to Dr. Praveen, because when we're talking AI and machine learning, he's not going to be far behind. And the EC coordinator is my very own IBP treasurer, so it's always nice for me and him to work together in whichever capacity that we see. We have that I think the task force has done a beautiful job in selecting the right kind of participants, the speakers today for us. The first speaker that we have is Dr. Noorul Hasan. He's a young psychiatrist, freshly minted, but with a huge amount of passion and experience under his belt. Not only did he is he a graduate from NIMHANS, his experience in community mental health is extensive, where he's authored articles and even chapters on mental health, so that gives him a unique perspective to be able to speak on this topic. He's also additional consultant at Sneka Mind Care Center, and he's founder and clinical in charge of Manithan Foundation. That's a 10 rupee Janta clinic at Tirunelveli. It's amazing to see such young people be so passionate about their work and wanting to do the right thing by people. As I said, that he's a great and a good speaker to give us a primer on what machine learning is, and it's an excellent way for us to start the session so that we understand, start from basics, because not all of us may be interested in it. But the reason that I'm also happy about this topic is because just yesterday, a patient of mine came in and she said, "Doc, I discovered GTP, and I asked the top 5 questions to ask my psychiatrist, and it was wonderful," and all of that. So yes, we know that it is really permeating in everyday lives of everyday people that we see. So I think it's a good idea for us to refresh, relearn, unlearn some things. And I think psychiatrists are one of the people who are good with keeping up with trends in technology. Our other speaker today, Dr. Shukla, he's an assistant professor at NIMHANS, again, has done amazing work. And his AI and ML related experience are that he's a lead PI for an ICMR funded project. There's process and patient outcomes with an artificial intelligence embedded treatment package for alcohol and nicotine use disorders. Has a whopping grant amount, and the participating institutes for this particular project is NIMHANS and IIT Kharagpur and AIMS Kalyani. So we know that he's definitely the guide for us today. He's also proficient in computer languages himself, so he definitely puts his money where his mouth is. And of course, he's very, very well trained with the MD in NIMHANS, but also postdoctoral fellowship in addiction in NIMHANS and a DM in addiction psychiatry. Has so many publications that I'm just going to, you're just going to have to take my word for it that he's very, very qualified and well published. He has a number of projects ongoing. And again, who would be better than him for as our next speaker to give us a little bit more insight into these topics. So with this, I would hand over to the moderator and of course, invite our speakers to take over and enlighten us further.
Noor, you can start your presentation, right?
Yes, sir. Yes. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes,
sir.
First of all, let me explain my anxiety first before introducing my topic. So really, I'm preoccupied, and others I am very happy in a pleasurable moment to present my small topic in the front of the great doyens and luminaries of the field. Ma'am, thanks a lot for the great introduction, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So here I am starting my topic. So the slides are visible? Yes.
Yes, sir.
My topic is artificial intelligence in mental health practice, a primer. I tried my level best to not to involve more with the machine learning process, because that will be separately taken by our guru, Dr. Lekhansh Shukla, sir. So this is a primer to understand artificial intelligence. So not discussing much about the health assisting apps. We will plan an exclusive session in the future about the hands-on training of the apps, hopefully from the task force. And this is a two-sided discussion covering the implications in one side and also the struggle faced in mental practice by the psychiatrist due to the evolution of artificial intelligence. Yeah, part one. So we have great inventions longitudinally since time immemorial when Adam reaches the earth. So the most important one of them is the fire. So the man, instead of eating or consuming whatever available from the nature, he decided to deform according to what his mind wants. So with the invention of the fire, the human being was able to do that. And second thing, so this is the basis for the Europeans' industrial evolution, when man learns that through steam, we can run a machine. So with this migration and ambulatory process, the Europe attained the greatest heights through industrial revolution. And the third one, the invention of wheel from the Vasco da Gama's voyage to the Ferrari. So without wheel, nothing is possible. So that made the invasion and migration much easier for the humankind. And nonetheless, so until 1950s, we understood resistant schizophrenia depend upon the duration criteria. So how much time a patient spends time in the mental asylum. For example, if the patient is spending time for 2 years and above, we consider them as a resistant case of schizophrenia. But after the invention of chlorpromazine, the first time the mental asylum was actually evacuated because of the good improvement from the illness. So unlike this invention, until now I have discussed, the invention of artificial intelligence is not straightforward and it is not completely of a positive course. It has a two-sided view. So one side through a complicated neural network pattern.
Speaker, sir, kindly unmute yourself and speak. Sir, kindly unmute, sir. Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Yes. Yeah, I'm here. So the invention of artificial intelligence is actually a two-sided, a two-edged sword-like picture. So now I will enter into the example. So until 2014, that amount of published papers in AI research was actually less. But when you compare this with 2015 to 2019, is immense. So much of things published under the AI research. So now I will take you to the simplified concept of artificial intelligence. Now, we know we have 6 cognitive domains, and most important of that is executive function. So executive function can be defined as the effector output elements involving inhibition, working memory, and organizational strategies to produce a response or solution. Through utilization of these factors, like working memory, self-monitoring, planning and prioritization, task initiation, organization, impulse control, emotional control, and flexible thinking. By incorporating these factors, a human mind can make a decision-making and a problem-solving ability. So this is called executive function. Now, what does this artificial intelligence do? So these machines are artificially incorporated with human-like intelligence to perform tasks with better proficiency and skill than human beings. This is achieved by infusion of knowledge to machine through complex algorithms and mathematical functions. See, at the onset, this is the simplified understanding of artificial intelligence. See, so infusion of knowledge is not alone important to make a problem-solving or decision-making task. Rather, with a given difficulties and adjustments, a task has to complete. Example, I am making a robot and I am fixing a task for that robot 5 kilometers from the starting point. Okay, so after reaching the 5th kilometer, the robot has a task to complete. Okay, so now on the process of walking through this 5 kilometer, it encounters a pond or river nearby. So as soon as the robot steps into the water, it has to take a call, So we should not go by this way. So robot has to take a lateral path to find out the bridge, and it has to cross the bridge, and it has to go to the area of target and to accomplish task. So this task, the single task that I have explained includes generalized learning, reasoning, and problem solving. So in order to adapt to the environment. So this is the second set of understanding that you need to clearly understood in artificial intelligence. So the three prerequisites to produce artificial intelligence is generalized learning, reasoning, and problem solving, right? Now, what are four delicate parameters of A? These are PLAR model, PLAR. The number one, it is perceiving the data given. And number two, it is learning the patterns. Number three, abstracting. And number four, the reasoning. So these are the four delicate parameters of artificial intelligence. Now we will see. Artificial intelligence is a paradigm shift. Okay. So in the initial time, a man was given a difficult task. So through his decision-making capacity or executive function capacity, he makes a solution and implement in his activities. This is part one. So this is before artificial intelligence, or now also it can apply. And second thing is, a difficult task is given to a machine. Through the PLAR abilities, machine does the decision-making and solution followed by implementation. So, but this model is actually infused by the human mind. Okay, the initial onset. Okay, so what does it do? So by incorporating a proper algorithmic and function related infusion to the machine does the solution making and decision making task that makes the human life a bit easier. For example, people who are above 50 years, they can tell their stories about the time of thesis submission in the ND times. They have actually done, they had done a handwritten model of statistical analysis to submit their thesis. But now the condition is different. We are using R or SPSS software in order to compute our statistics to get a result. So this is the simple understanding what a machine does and how the machine makes things easier for human. There are three waves of artificial intelligence. So number one, handcrafted knowledge. Number two, statistical learning. And number three, contextual adaptation. So this doesn't mean that we are only at the contextual adaptation phase. We doesn't know, we are not at all practicing handcrafted knowledge or statistical learning. This is like a three waves of psychotherapy. Still, we are practicing psychodynamic therapy even at the era of CBT and mindfulness, right? So like that, we have three waves of artificial intelligence. Number one, handcrafted knowledge, statistical learning, and contextual adaptation. So we'll try to differentiate what are these three waves and what are the unique features of that. Number one, the handcrafted knowledge. So what is the explanation of that? So example, we are playing a video game. Depend upon the input through reasoning, the output is actually fixed. Example, when you are playing the Subway Surf or a Mario game in the past. So depend upon our ability to reasoning to cross a stage, our output is fixed. This is called handcrafted knowledge. This is the initial wave of the artificial intelligence. So, but here, the simultaneous learning and abstracting capabilities are very, very less in this area. So now we are moving into the wave two. This is called statistical learning. Here, what happens is we are generating a hypothesis through a multi-layered learning process following the input. Example, the image or large data processing occurs through a multi-step process. This is a statistical learning. This is not a single input-output process through reasoning. Rather, it is a multi-layered analysis of the input followed by a delicate and smart output. Okay, so the limitations are low abstracting and reasoning capacities. And the third wave is, to explain that, I will take you to an example. Okay, so in the wave two, in the multi-layered processing or the statistical learning example, I am just infusing the input as a 3D model of a brain. Okay, it is being analyzed now. The layer one analyzes, it improves the pixel quality, and the layer two analyzes the resolution of the edges, and layer three does recognition of sulci and gyri, and layer four recognition of the lesion or aberrancy, and finally it gives an output that is a brain or a human brain. But what happened, you know, if you carefully look at this 3D brain model, it's a brain of a monkey. You can actually notice the small frontal lobe. So though it has analyzed in a delicate way, but the pattern recognition is not that extensive or clear. You got it? Now, I'm doing the same input to the three-dimensional brain. So layer analysis occurs, improving the pixel quality, resolution of the edges, recognition of the cell and gyri, recognition of the lesion, and it does a good work called pattern recognition that lead to detailed PL/AR analysis, delicate and accurate output you can get. So how can we achieve that? By giving extensive training with a similar data. Example, different models of human brain or different models of monkey's brain should be uploaded, incorporated into the machine learning so that it can understand the pattern, so that it can give analysis, feature understanding by itself to give an accurate and delicate data what it has got. You got it? Till now, are you following? Now, so and this third wave is called contextual adaptations, where pattern recognition occurs through extensive training of similar data, which in turn helps in doing a detailed PL/AR work to give a delicate output process. For example, if you type, example, one of the very important and complex question in the MD exam is neurobiology of schizophrenia, neurobiology of bipolar disorder. But if you type the same to the ChatGPT, it will give a very structured, well language processed result to your message. So you can actually write it as an essay. So this has happened through extensive training through data and language processing. Hope you got it. So this is a third wave. So what happens in third wave? So it exclusively perceives, it abstracts, it learns and reasons. Hence it is called contextual modeling. So it can vary according to the input, conditions and demands created. So if you look at this 4 model, here perception, learning and reasoning are good, but it's short behind mildly in terms of abstracting, because it cannot simply cross the human understanding of logical and reasoning. I will give an example. Okay, so this is one of the article editorial written by Tripathi et al. In 2023, I think it got released some 4 or 5 days back in Neurology India. So when ChatGPT was asked about gamma knife therapy for vestibular schwannoma, it just say the answer in a more precise way. It's like reading from multiple textbook and taking notes. So how that notes will be. So that kind of response that ChatGPT was able to give. But what did they do again? Next, so the Hopkins et al. Challenged the ChatGPT with a question paper from Congress of Neurological Surgeons. So it just scored 60%, lying short of 10 from the average score created by the doctors who attended the exam. So what does it mean? So the logic, the reasoning, taking a decision according to the patient perspective, this all cannot be achieved by the existing third wave artificial intelligence. So it can give as much as well summarized, well written, delicate, linguistically articulate format, but it will short behind a abstracting depend upon the patient perspective or individuality. Here, both subjectivity and objectivity highly matters here. So this is the example of third wave artificial intelligence. Now, what are the advantages of using artificial intelligence? It makes the life fast and real-time transfer of data information can happen. Effective knowledge dissemination can happen. It reduces the manpower and human burden. Effective and easy statistical analysis that eases the research, makes teaching and learning easier, and makes life faster than ever before. Yeah, part 2, A in psychiatry. See, in this part, I am not at all going to pull out so much data, whatever I have read. Rather, I am trying to accumulate as forwarding explanation in psychiatry regarding artificial intelligence. So number 1, A implication psychiatry. What are the domains the A is implicated? Number 1, the history writing and data storage. Why I am specifically putting across history writing means, you know, your 30% of your time spent in writing the case sheets in MD psychiatry course, right? So in psychiatry, history writing assistance is actually very much needed. So I'm just exclusively writing that. Then effective follow-up and for making audits, and then analysis of stored data, example, EEG of bipolar patient or depressive patient, and processing of the image. Then crisis intervention at the time of suicidality or transient psychotic times in personality disorders. Then training robots for child disorders. Then assisting apps, cognitive remediation. Then in early identification of psychiatric disorders and neurological disorders, and assisting robots for geriatric disorders. So these are the domains where artificial intelligence is actually highly implicated. So, and the last one, the recognition of distress and basic crisis intervention in the society and personal disorders. So, major and 10 domains where artificial intelligence has a greater role in it. So, in history-taking process, I will give an idea about the app. It's called Ognito. It can convert the voice into the written manuscript. So, this is currently in greater usage in radio diagnosis for writing their reports than in other fields. So if we are able to utilize this Ognito or generalize this Ognito in our forum, so the burden of writing the case sheet for so long may be reduced. So that may give extra time for the people to read, or at least can give extra time to people to enjoy, right? So this is one of the important apps that you can learn. There are many promo videos are there in YouTube. You can actually watch that to understand about it. And second thing, in bipolar disorder, the convolution neural network mediated pattern recognition of EEG, for example, video EEG taken from 1,000 of the moderate major depressive disorder patients. So when it is incorporated into a machine, when it analysis is done to the CNN model, so it picks up a specific pattern rather than a lesion. Example, the seizure activity spikes. It will not pick up in that way. Rather, it picks up a specific pattern after analyzing all the 1,000 data incorporated, and it comes up with a pattern. This kind of pattern is recognized in this individual. So where it helps, because diagnosing major depressive disorder is easy in a clinical perspective, then why we need to do a EEG related work in this patient? Because by analyzing the data, you can differentiate dementia from depression. This can be one of the implications of this kind of analysis. And there are some apps available like Obot and Test that can be very well utilized in people with bipolar disorder. So the apps mainly help identify the emotions, thought patterns, and to learn skills such as resilience, then track and flag the expression which indicate distress. This is about bipolar disorder. And in terms of psychotic disorder, so you all know the upgraded model of the avatar therapy is playing a very important. The AI enriched avatar project or avatar therapy playing a major role in psychotic disorders. It facilitates the development of virtual therapeutic alliance. It reduces the communication barrier. It promotes treatment seeking through anonymity. It promotes expression and exploration of the client identity and enabling therapists to control and manipulate the treatment stimuli. In anxiety disorders, we have many apps. There are more than 2,000 wellness apps are available. So I will just list out some of them which are user-free, like Inner Hover. So offers personalized plans, daily exercises, chat-based platforms to connect to the therapist. And the Visa, it's an AI-powered mental health chatbot, provides emotional support and counseling. Then Mood Feed, Your Dost, and you all know the app called Manas. And again, the Mind Notes is still in the process of completion. So these are all the wellness apps that can help the people at the time of anxiety crisis. And so well-being apps, what does it do actually? It screens your emotional state and web activity. Then it takes inferences about the distress level. It helps via rescue chatbots at the times of distress or crisis. It provides knowledge about the particular condition and the remedies. It sends notification to the parental control if some kind of suicidality is noted in your activity, and provides set of basic mental health advices or structured therapy, and connects to nearby therapists if in need. So in child psychiatry, in autism spectrum disorder, there's something called Casper robots. They are socially assistive robots. It can play 6 roles like provoker, reinforcer, trainer, mediator, prompter, and diagnostic information provider. But you know, this setup is actually very costly, and not everyone can afford for that. And at one end, the child may develop a restricted behavior even towards a robotic use also. So these are some of the disadvantages with this forum. Yes. And another very important app, there's something called BARC app. These are parental control applications. It actually monitors more than 24 social media platforms that your child is using. It offers customizable alert settings when child is visually something like suicide, how to commit suicide. This kind of searches are made in the search box. It automatically gives a feedback to the parental control, and they can alert themselves in order to prevent any crisis or suicidal activity in the childhood. Yes, we have some issues with the privacy breach, but in the other side, we will be able to control or prevent some amount of suicidal activities from the childhood. And in geriatric psychiatry, actually, the use of AI in geriatric psychiatry is amazing. Very importantly, the early diagnosis of dementia, for example. So we have a data set of about 4,000 patients who can be classified into normal cognition, MCA, and Alzheimer's dementia. So the 5,000 data consists of these three people. So now I can stage-wise analyze this data via RNN or CNN network analysis, and I can come up with which group fastly enter into the dementia pattern, and if when they are the specific group who the specific group which enter the dementia, what are the parameters? For example, through assessment of cortical thickness, neuromelanin, midbrain changes, DTA, fMRI, arterial spin labeling, assessment scales. So from the three groups, we are assessing this and analyzing this with the AI software, and we are able to identify which are the population they are fastly traveling the lane from MCA to dementia, and what are the predictive factors and how can we prevent. So this is the major work done by CNN and RNN, but in Indian context, we don't have that big data or digitalized data as of now. Maybe the institutes have, but in the periphery, still it is a daydream. So in geriatric psychiatry, there are other application assistive apps are available for cognitive remediation. You can use, you can guide them with the Lumosity, pill reminder and medication tracker apps, speech and gait tracker app for the early identification of Parkinson's disease, and elder care locator app. These are all the developments of AA in geriatric psychiatry. In genetics, you all know in psychiatry is not a single candidate genome matter. Rather, the neurobiology is very diverse, multifactorial, and polygenomic. So we cannot do a candidate gene analysis in psychiatry. Rather, we can do a association studies. So if any of you read a good GWAS paper, they could have understood the complexity of analyzing the association study data. So in that area, exactly this artificial intelligence data analysis plays a greater role in analyzing GWAS to identify what are the genes which are highly associated with the emerging of schizophrenia. So this is a mind map to understand the GWAS that I am skipping. And the part 4, artificial intelligence in social media. So let me spend another 10 minutes in this area before I complete. So number 1, so this is a review article written by Ansgar Thiel in 2022 August. So you can notice these are the behavioral changes or abnormalities noted in a children who are highly using the social media platforms. So you can notice this, instead of seeing syndromic changes, the child is developing abnormal sleep patterns, behavioral problems, body image issues, online grooming, mood dysregulation. So there was a retrospective analysis done from between 2006 to 2020 in USA, and they came to know that the yearly phase, at least there is a surge of admission in child psychiatry for behavioral disturbances noted. The starting point for that surge is around 2010, and it actually nearly correlates around the rampant use of Facebook social media. So what does it do? So instead of producing a syndromic changes in an individual, it creates behavioral problems, body image issues, sleep rhythm changes, online grooming, cyberbullying, and mood dysregulation. These are all the consequences of this social media usage. So you can understand. So there was one story that I heard from my patient. So she was very active in social media, Facebook. So on every once in or twice in a week, she used to share a cute image of her face in the Facebook media. So people used to comment, people used to praise, people used to like. So at the end, one of the friend or senior told, "Your ears could have been little bigger, man." So this was a comment. So after seeing that comment, the child slowly developed some body image disturbances, frequently checking the mirror about the size of the ear, size of the nose. Slowly it entered into the syndromic pattern of a body dysmorphobia. So just I'm trying to explain how this social media causes a consequent changes in the child developing brain. So this is the Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix Media, once said, the 3 top competitors of the current world is the YouTube, Facebook, and the human sleep. They are competing on each other, okay, and they're trying to succeed on each other. So what does it say means it's completely affecting the human sleep pattern. So till now, hope you are following me. So now I'm entering into the part of the persuasive human lab concept. What does it mean? Example, if I wanted to use the app that I have invented, okay, so I want you to use more, spend excess time completely stuck up with that app. So if I want to do that, I have to persuade with some amount of inputs. So this persuasion is completely done by the AI software that causes the change in behavior, motivation, change in worldview, the compliance and attitude change. So this is called persuasion through artificial intelligence, which are important in the users of the social media. So even if you check with some of your friends who are at the great position in Google or Amazon, they will say they specifically have a persuasive human lab. So how to persuade the user in order to use that software or the forum again and again and to spend excess time for that. Okay. So this is a concept of persuasive computers. Now, so why this is happening? So why an app has to persuade you to use it again and again? Because you have downloaded your Facebook, Twitter or Instagram without any money. Then why the app has to persuade you to use it again and again? The answer is the advertisement. Okay. For example, tomorrow a touring video is going to release in YouTube. So that will be taken up, the tender will be taken up by one of the YouTube media channel. Then they will give tender to the Amazon, Flipkart or great corporate centers, and they will ask for a 10-second ad in the onset of the video. So as an example, Amazon is getting that winning the tender means, then the manager will receive the mail and they will make a 10-second ad about something in Amazon in the onset of the video, because the same video when tomorrow it is released, that will be at least visualized by 50 lakh people in India in the first day itself. So if that is the case, so the YouTube media is getting money transferred from the great corporates for ad. So in order to make yourself to visualize ad more and more, I have to persuade you with some behavioral changes. So this is a whole concept of persuasive changes of human behavior. Now, so what happens? So whenever you are signing into a new social media app, so recognition of the user via sign-in, then sending random feeds, so to test your personality, and third, analysis of your views, watches, the peeping, likes, dislikes, share, time spent in each video, celebrities interested, issues interested. So after understanding that, it makes a AI-based personalized feedbacks for you. Then AI-based analysis of users' personality through 500 or 5,000 points. So they have some kind of analysis by understanding or kind of making a combination permutation through that analysis. They will come to a conclusion of what kind of personality he is and what type of visualization he is interested in seeing that. Then persuading human behavior, which will affect the attitude and your worldview, and slowly will get addicted to one particular content that lead to binge watching, dependence that will compromise your function and interpersonal relation. So all this happens for a particular reason that is called advertisement. So in order to advertise our commodities, you have to see a video. So that is the whole concept behind that. Now, so this is a high time that we need to discuss about this, because the issue related to the Trump arrest is going on. So actually what happened, you know, when the Trump campaign was happening, so the president, the former president in association with Cambridge Analytical, he signed a contract through Britannia Kaiser. So what happened is, so they, in liaison with the Facebook, they got 500 points about the user data. So then Cambridge Analytica will analyze that 500 points data given by the Facebook, and they will share a personalized feeds with the fake or persuading information in order to make them voting for a particular person. So this is the agenda-based usage of artificial intelligence. So this is the whole nutshell of the case behind the Trump's issue in USA. Okay, if you want to know more about, you can watch two documentaries called, one is The Social Dilemma, and another documentary is called The Great Hack. So when you understand that, you can get a better view of what is happening through artificial intelligence in terms of setting an agenda for a vote bank to support particular people. Now, so with that, you can understand the word of Yuval Noah Harari. So he was the great author of that book called Sapiens, who was one of the Orientalists. He says, the water is not the next oil. Rather, data is the next oil which will invite wars and bloodshed. So data is the major trump card in the current days. And in the last part, so we have social media addiction. So what will we do apart from starting SSRI antipsychotics for mood dysregulation? In psychotherapy, what will we do? So we will assess severity, extent of intrusion. We will understand the extent of intrusion to the personal life. We will do individualized or parenting-based intervention. We will do controlling internal and external triggers. Then we will assess the stage of motivation. Then we will try to do MET or RPT for the individual. But it is not simple. Okay, we have made some personalized work on for treating the social media, but it is not that simple. You are using mobile in one hand, and there are thousands of people under the rubric of artificial intelligence. They are working you to persuade and making you to get addicted in a particular matter. So, as I would say, the type of therapy that we have for social media treatment of social media addiction, it falls behind so much when comparing the type of artificial intelligence work done behind the screen in order to make you addict again and again. So if you're interested, you can read that book, The 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts right now. So he was one of the R&D worker in Google, I think. So the last slide. So this editorial was released 4 days back on 15th June in Neurology India. What he tries to say is, so this is the initial level of work. That will be a difficult task, and the human mind has to analyze and to do and to make a possible decision making and solutions. But now it is completely done by the machine. Okay. So so initially we understood that this kind of work makes our life easier, but sadly it curbs your human creativity, blends his reasoning, and verge of becoming an autistic animal with excessive use of this machine learning process of artificial intelligence. ChatGPT in research. So if I want to write an abstract about my thesis, I can ask ChatGPT to send me an abstract.
I'm sorry, Dr. Noor, I just want to interrupt you and remind you to be mindful of the time, please.
Yes, I'm finishing. This is the last slide, man. So in order to differentiate what is the original manuscript and what is the one we got from ChatGPT. So the World Association of Medical Editors published a recommendation on the use of ChatGPT. I need new tools to detect artificial intelligence generated or modified content in comparing with the original manuscript. So really that makes life so miserable, confusing. I'm thinking whether are we really in the era of development or this disaster? So we have to make a cutting line when to use artificial intelligence in our population. So having said all things, the one that cannot be easily kind of compensated with the evolution of AI is the rational thinking, the soft skills, the personal and treatment decisions, which are the pillars of psychiatric practice that cannot be replaced with ChatGPT. Rather, the excessive intelligence into the AI model may blend this rational thinking or soft skills or personal treatment decisions. And thanks for this. Thanks for the listening. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noor. I think we'll take all the questions at the end of both of the sessions, if that's all right with my co-chair as well. And I think the moderator is okay with that. I would now like to invite our second speaker for the day. I think Dr. Noor has done an extensive primer, and we'll get more more learnings from our next speaker, Dr. Shukla. Dr. Shukla, are you there? Are you okay with your slides? I don't see your video on.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Hi. So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all the seniors, and a lot of my teachers are there in the audience. So as Noorul was saying, that makes one nervous. So while I start sharing the screen, I would like to thank the organizers for having invited me for this talk. Right. Is my screen visible now, Dr. Rukshita?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good to go.
Okay.
You just want to start the slide. Yes.
Yes. So, okay. Thanks, Noorul. You have kind of made my work much more easier because you gave a very good overview. What I intend to do in this is to get a bit more deep. So I think Noor went with the breadth. I would like to go with the depth a bit, and then specifically discuss the implications or applications of AI in the psychiatric practice. This was the topic given to me, and therefore I will not be discussing research applications, which are very many. So although he has already said this, I think it's very important for us to realize whenever we are expecting a machine to do something seemingly intelligent, not necessarily intelligent, seemingly intelligent, that's artificial intelligence. Whenever we are expecting machine to start learning things, learning patterns, that's machine learning. And a subtype of machine learning is deep learning. I'm introducing deep learning here because as of today, whenever we talk of ChatGPT or Google Spark or almost any machine learning applications, almost all of them are deep learning. So that deep learning is the terminology that Noor was using, recurrent neural networks, convolutional neural networks. These are all examples of deep learning. So let's look at it this way. We can, as I said, whenever we expect a machine to take some decisions, it is artificial intelligence. It could be of two types. And the first type we have been using for a long time, and that is symbolic AI, which is give a sufficient number of rules. For example, if diagnosis is schizophrenia, BMI is more than some cutoff, and this, and diabetes is positive, and that is negative, make a very complicated rule, then give the output as, say, aripiprazole or something that has lower risk of increasing body weight. This is a symbolic AI because in this, the intelligence is not of the computer. Computer is just executing the rules that we have given to it. Whereas machine learning is, we are giving it data. We are initially also giving it what is the output we expect, and we are leaving it to the machine that you decide what the rules are. So to make it even more concrete, when we give inputs and we have already fed rules into the system, then it is symbolic AI. All of us use these things day in, day out. Whereas when we give it inputs and labels, for example, if I give it multiple schizophrenia case summaries and the medicine chosen by the psychiatrist, and I believe these 100 cases are the gold standard. The psychiatrist was 100% right in making that choice. I do not tell the machine, why did the psychiatrist make those choices? I just give those case summaries and what was the choice made. And then 101st case, I don't give it the label. I just give it a case summary and I ask it, now you guess what should be the output. Then it becomes machine learning. The interesting part of this is the machine is not going to tell us what rules it decided. It may be completely different from the rules that the psychiatrist was using. Machine has detected some patterns and it is now using it to map the new inputs to the expected output. So that way it's kind of a black box. One doesn't know what it actually is doing or what it is using. Now, what do we need to have to set up a machine learning kind of a experiment or an application? We need input data. And since everything is happening in computers, the data has to be numeric. So no matter what the data format is, the MRI images are ultimately converted to pixels. Each pixel has a location X, Y, Z, and has a value 0 or 1. Was it on or was it off? Right? Similarly, voice is converted to waveforms and the waveform has an amplitude. So whatever it is, it eventually gets converted to a numerical format. And that is called the pre-processing of it. And we initially give it examples of expected output. The example that we were discussing, schizophrenia, so case summaries, and the expected output is one amongst, say, 5 choices of medicine. So we initially give a large data set that is so-called labeled, where we are giving it the answer ourselves so that it learns. And then we also have to decide on some measure of performance, because learning cannot happen without feedback. So we tell it that use X, Y, or Z as your measure of performance. For example, don't punish yourself too much if instead of aripiprazole, you chose another antipsychotic which has low metabolic risk. Whereas punish yourself harshly if instead of aripiprazole, the first output that you gave was olanzapine. So we also tell it what mistakes are acceptable, what mistakes are not acceptable. This is so-called cost function. We give it a cost function. What is the cost of making a wrong decision? Ultimately, what the machine does is, at a very abstract level, it just keeps on looking at the input data, keeps on rotating it. So you can imagine it like a small child who has been handed a new object, looking at it from different angles, rotating it along various axes, palpating its various indentations to eventually map it to the expected output. Why understanding this is important is it can very well do garbage in, garbage out. So if you have a sufficiently large data set and you keep feeding, you keep repeatedly showing it that data set along with the labels, it will abstract away some patterns. The real test of the model is going to be when we give it the data which it has not seen yet, because invariably it can link input to output, and how it links it is a black box. We do not know. There's no language to describe that rationally. Let's look at what are the various models, because my topic is that models and its implications. We can look, so there can be multiple ways of classifying machine learning. One of which is we can classify based on how much supervision is needed. By supervision, what I mean is, going back to the example, if I have to give it 100 cases of schizophrenia case summaries and the chosen medicine, I need people who have actually seen these cases. I need another set of annotators who go through the decisions of these doctors and say, this is a good case to use, this is not a good case to use. All this is supervisions. This is an example of supervised learning. I can also have unsupervised learning. By unsupervised learning, what I mean is, I put the same example, schizophrenia patients, and I can do a cluster analysis. That is, give it 1 if it's a male, give it 1 if it's the BMI is above this, give it 1 for this, that, and then just cluster it and say, if the new case is very similar to a cluster for which mostly aripiprazole was given, then please give aripiprazole. This time, I don't have to really do a lot of supervision. There could also be self-supervised learning, and I would like to spend some time on this one. Self-supervised learning is feed in a book or a play by Shakespeare to a model that you know nothing about and tell it, I don't want to work too much with you. Somehow learn something from this. You can program the model to do one thing, that is take a line and randomly delete or hide words, and then just learn to predict the next word. For example, if it's a different corpus, it's a tweet, I am feeling very, and the next word is deleted. The model has deleted it. The model actually knows what the word is, but for its learning, it hides it. And it tries to guess, does this sentence end with, I am feeling very happy, I am feeling very sad, I am feeling very excited. And then it punishes itself if it got the wrong model. Now, self-supervised learning takes away the human cost. You don't need annotators. You just need access to a lot of data. And that's why we have a lot of these text-based applications. If you look at it, ChatGPT is ultimately a text-based application. And although it is being glamorized a lot, ultimately what the model does is predict the next token. It's as simple as that. It's like a person who knows nothing about anything, but is just using what the speaker said to try and have a dialogue. So it's kind of a very good parrot who's extremely good at holding small chats. That is how it has been trained. It just predicts the next token in the chain. So that's an example of self-supervised learning. We can also classify it based on type of input data, text, which uses something called natural language processing, NLP, which I think...
Doctor, we lost your voice.
Oh, you did, is it? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Was my voice lost for a substantial period of time?
No, just for a few seconds. Don't worry about it.
Just for a few seconds. Okay, fine. So with text, we use something called natural language processing. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but NLP is nothing but converting sentences into numbers. We can have images with which we use convolutional neural network, CNN, and we can have time-stamped data. So this is important. First visit of the patient, first workup, next visit of the patient, follow-up notes, another visit, another visit, another visit. There is some meaning even in the order of the data. So you need a model that takes the order into consideration. And that's why you use something called recurrent neural networks. Recurrence, because it keeps looking at what has happened in the past before making decisions about the present or the future. A much more important way of classifying it is we have discriminant models, which are nothing but ultimately trying to come up with a classification. It could be a binary classification, depressed or not. It could be a multi-class classification, depression, dementia, schizophrenia, one amongst these. Or it could be a multi-label classification, depression along with dementia. So these are categorical labels. Similarly, we can have regression models. And so as you can right now understand, these kind of models will have very different applicability. For example, they will go into clinical decision support systems. Doctors would want to feed in routinely collected data and ask for a guess of how likely is this patient to have, say, depression. Whereas there are generative models, like the one that we have been discussing this afternoon, like ChatGPT, that generate things. So for example, you can generate text, which is called a large language model. There is something called Midjourney, and there are a couple of other models also, applications, which generate images. So you tell them, please draw a painting of a landscape in somebody's style, and they would do that. Or you could also generate videos. Now let's look at, is psychiatry actually a fertile use case for AI models? And as at the time of introduction, senior members said that it has been much more used in radiology, ophthalmology, etc. Things which use images, because images are very well structured. You can break them down to pixels, their locations, and their intensity. Psychiatry is a special, and I would like to believe so, and I think everybody in the house will agree, at least in this house. Psychiatry is very special. Number one, it's language heavy. Most of the stuff that we do depends on language, and you realize this when you have to see patients whose language you don't speak. So it's a very language heavy branch. The decision rules are usually fuzzy. What I mean by fuzzy is, for ophthalmology, the question could be, is there evidence of, say, early retinal degeneration? But for us, the questions that we ask are inherently very, very fuzzy. I mean, it's difficult for even psychiatrists to kind of agree all the time with other psychiatrists. There's a lot of concept drift. Concept drift is when you train a model in one world and try and test it in another world. What I mean is, say, for example, if I were training a binary model for depression or not, and I was doing it before the DSM revision, every time I would have mentioned the word patient has recently lost XYZ, depression would have been ruled out, because generally we were not diagnosing depressive disorders along with grief. Whereas now it is no more an exclusion. So the concept itself has shifted. So it's a moving target. The patterns emerge in long run. As we know, as we keep seeing patients, we get more information, and sometimes many times we revise our diagnosis. The last problem is going to be, there are insubstantial differences in classes. Almost for the two major psychiatric disorders, that is psychosis and, say, depression. In reality, if you look at the meta-analysis, the drugs do not really differ too much in their outcomes. So that makes it, the closer the classes are, the more difficult it is for an AI model to kind of separate them. What could be the sources of input data? This has already been discussed. I'm just going to discuss some of the things that have not been discussed. So I think the seduction of the whole idea is passive data collection. Somebody is carrying a phone, we have installed an app, and that app is continuously sending us tons and tons of data about their sleep, about their heart rate, where they were, how was the heart rate at that location, how many calls did they make that day, how many times did they flip their or fob their phone, how fidgety were they, so on and so forth. Because this doesn't require any active effort from the human being. So that's one stream of data that's been commonly used now. Self-reported data, not only in the clinic, but also, for example, having an app that asks you to fill a mood rating 3 times a day or 4 times a day, things like that. Social media activity, and there could be therapy session recordings. Now let's come to implications. And I have kind of taken a bit of liberty and converted it to applications, because, implications, we go into the territory of kind of speculation. But let's look at what are the applications in psychiatry. As I said, the most useful way is to look at them as discriminant models, where you are asking for an answer. Does this person have depression or not? Is clozapine the best choice for this person? Things like that. They can be divided into risk prediction models and ranking models. So when we are typing something in a Google search bar, it's using a ranking algorithm to give us what we may actually be searching. If you search for how to and pause there, you will see a number of suggestions. Most of them are very relevant to you. Do the same exercise incognito and you will see those completions are not relevant to you. So that's an example of a ranking. We can use generative models for content generation of educational therapeutic nature, for information extraction, and this is something that Noorul told us, and I'm going to show you how that could be done. I mean, how well it could be done, and ultimately speech to text generation. So let's look at risk prediction models. The whole idea is give all types of inputs, whatever inputs you have. Sociodemography is being passively collected at your counter, use that. Whatever lab data you have, please use that. Whatever notes you have, somehow convert it into numerical embeddings and use that. And ultimately, the model is asked, give me the probability of either a diagnosis or an event, for example, risk of a suicide attempt, or risk of, in a very simple manner, seeing a patient who has come to you in alcohol withdrawal, and the question you want to ask is this person likely to have DT? In which case, I must admit this person. So DT is an event. So you can ask, what is the probability of that event? Much of work has happened into it. And it seems that we have an accuracy of about 60 to 80%. But then I must say, none of this work, to my knowledge at least, none of this work has been tested in different settings. And let's not forget, ultimately, all AI models are bound by the data in which they were trained. So what could be predicting presence of depression in USA may simply not be what predicts presence of depression in India. We have very different idioms of distress, or we may have very different risk factors. But all said and done, risk prediction models have been used. Some of them have been validated. We can have recommender models, as I told you. Again, whatever inputs you have, you give it to the model and you ask the model, there are, say, 3 choices. One is, I can send the patient home for domiciliary detoxification of alcohol withdrawal. I can admit the patient right now to my emergency, or I can send the patient home, but with a mandatory follow-up tomorrow morning. So these are levels. None of these are completely wrong choices. And the model is asked to arrange them in what would be the best. So that would be an example of recommender models. Similarly, type of treatment, that is, should this person be receiving, say, should this person be receiving ECTs or some other form of neurostimulation or medicine or both or only psychotherapy, that could also be ranked. Similarly, medication choices could be ranked. Here, actually, if you look at it, the prediction models are rather more hopeful. One feels more hopeful that yes, something might emerge out of it. But for ranking models, it seems they end up giving wrong answers quite frequently. And clinicians frequently overrule what the machine told them. And when an analysis was done, why did the clinician do it? The clinician said, I just find it impossible to trust what this machine told me because my intuition was telling me something else. And that is why it's important when we are dealing with black box kind of systems, you will have to convince the user to take that recommendation with at least some amount of seriousness. Coming to generative models. Noorul has already alluded to it. Information extraction. It could be the reverse. What I mean by reverse is, in a lot of centers, or a lot of us are in habit of actually writing free-form notes. So this is a hypothetical note, but then this is how notes are written at my center, where a doctor just types out or writes whatever information is given to them in the form of a psychiatric formulation. So if you use this data, if you use this formulation, and you feed it to Google's recent release BARD, and ask it a number of questions and tell it the kind of answer you want. You want a number, you want a true or false, it would be able to give you that information. Now, what is Google BARD? Google BARD is ultimately a large language model that has ingested all the digital data available in the world and on the internet. That's all that it has done. But with it, it has kind of developed the abilities to hold a seemingly intelligent conversation. It has developed the ability to go through a corpus of text. This is ultimately a corpus of text. It's a story, and answer certain questions from it. How it could be useful? You could, at the end of it, you would end up with structured data sets, which you could use for various other reasons, or the opposite of it. If, for example, parental staff is actually filling up a form for every patient, and you want that to be converted to a properly worded summary to communicate it to either another consultant or for writing a referral note, these would be the use cases where you could extract information from written text. Let's look at, so as I said, large language models are right now the hype of generative models, and that's why we are focusing more on it. They ultimately predict the next token. You give them a context. For example, here, the prompt that I had given is, I am going to play the client and you are going to play the therapist, and you must stick to the style of motivational interviewing. And my parents have brought me to you with the problem of cannabis smoking. And this is the therapeutic content it generates. Actually, it's not doing too bad. It is not really doing too bad. It is following some of the principles like open-ended questions, things like that. A very strict rater might say that a why question should not have been asked, but all said and done, this is not a human being. This is just a model which is giving okay kind of content is what I would say. One could challenge it. So it can be a to and fro communication. So one could challenge it by saying that cannabis has been legalized in many countries. So how can it be so harmful? Which is a usual question I'm sure all of you have faced while you're working in the OPD. And it continues to hold on to its point. It gives rather convincing or seemingly convincing responses to it. So this can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I'm very sure it's already Visa is one of them. I'm very sure eventually people are going to try and use this to develop chatbots, which would really be replacing humans. And how I see it working, how it has worked in other fields is something called hot swap. Hot swap is you continue with this conversation, and at some point, the model is taught that it must transfer it to a human being. So if one were paying, so I'm talking completely in terms of economics, because that is what is driving the whole thing right now. If I am paying somebody for 45 minutes of therapy session, that therapist is blocked for that 45 minutes. Whereas if a therapist is sitting in a call center kind of setup and is only getting these hot swaps, that is cases that the model can't handle. And so now the same therapist in that 45 minutes could now be seeing 2 or 3 patients. So that would be a kind of hybrid. So that's another use case where generative models could be used. Now I'm coming to almost the last leg of my presentation. Am I within my time limit, Dr.? I will believe that I am. Okay.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah. So why should we, I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir because already this topic has been chosen, a task force has been formed, but I'd like to look at it this way. Why should we be actually knowing about AI? And to my mind, we must be knowing about it, of course, for research purposes, but that's a separate point altogether. Although I think a lot of you would be wondering if it's a black box, how does it help research? And that's the major difference between statistics and machine learning. In statistics, we want to draw inferences. In machine learning, we just want to make predictions. We are happy if the predictions are right. We don't really bother what helped us make that prediction. So that way, yes, machine learning will face certain problems of explainability, of explicability when it is used in research settings. But in practice, we must know it mainly because very shortly, if not already, we would be seeing products coming into the market which use this. And we would be seeing salespersons coming to us, asking us to buy one of those products. And then we will have to ask some intelligent questions. And I intend to spend some time on this. What are those intelligent questions? For example, one of the things that I would like to know is it predictive or a generative model? The simple reason is, if it's a predictive model, I would be basically receiving an answer. I can choose to believe it or not believe it. Whereas, and the models, just think of it as a system which you have constrained to giving you only true, false, or similarly constrained answers. It can't really give you free flow answers, right? Whereas in generative models, they can give a free flow of there's no limit to what they say. And therefore, if, for example, I'm using a generative model at the beginning of my interaction with patient's interaction with my practice or with my institute, I have very little control what happens in that 1 or 2 minutes, what output goes out. So that's why I would be a bit more wary about generative models. Again, to revise, generative models, the most talked about example right now are large language models like ChatGPT 4 and the Google Spark. The other question I would like to know is, what kind of data was it trained on? How similar is that data to my data? For example, much of the research that you will see invariably uses MRI data. But do we actually do MRI for all our patients before we take calls? I mean, one can have a separate discussion, we must, but then do we do it already? And in that case, if we will have to start doing it only for the purpose of using this model, then shouldn't the cost of MRI be added to the cost of this, buying this app or this model? Has this model been tested on any new data sets? That is, the first training. So for example, tomorrow, if I come to you, I'm just giving a hypothetical example. Tomorrow, if I come to you saying that, with my grant, I have been able to make a model, here is the patent for it. Although just to put it on record, ICMR will hold all intellectual property rights. But just imagine if I'm trying to sell you that, the first question you must ask is, except NIMHANS, did you try and test your model anywhere else? How did it perform there? Did you at least try in a comparable tertiary center, right? What are the historical biases and equity? This is a whole topic unto itself, but just to kind of touch upon it, as we said, these are just models that have used existing data and existing course of actions to eventually learn the patterns. And now they are asking, give me new data, I will give you the next course of action. How very well. But there can be certain biases that are very deeply ingrained in our practice. For example, working in the setup that I do, one of the things, if I were to be using a recommender system for medications, a lot of our patients are below poverty line. And therefore, I end up choosing between one or two antipsychotics which are available for free. Now, a model trained on this kind of a thing will invariably keep telling that the best choice is, say, risperidone. We may not agree. It's just a historical bias that has gotten very deeply ingrained into it. There could be similar historical biases related to the socioeconomic status, related to gender. For example, there was a lot of hue and cry about when ChatGPT 4 was fed with resumes of people, and the resumes were matched in terms of their expertise, their experience, everything. Still, it chose males for keeping on job about twice as commonly as females. That's because it has ingested data which had that bias, and therefore it just can't help but propagate that bias continuously. There have been similar problems with facial recognition systems in terms of the skin color, etc. So those are things we must look into before we kind of jump into it. Now, generative models are notorious for, and it's fancily called hallucinations. So how it happens is you ask it a question, and as I said, it's a person who knows nothing but just knows how to talk with superficial glide. So what it will do is it will, in very confident manner, give you an answer. Then you ask it, can you cite any sources? It will generate sources for you. Because to it, none of this has any meaning. It's just the next word prediction. So it can give very incorrect, fabricated, and sometimes dangerous outputs. So the ChatGPT 3 had to be taken offline and retrained with human feedback because a lot of outputs that were coming. For example, you could theoretically ask it, I have detergent and ammonia with me. Is there some way I can make a bomb? And it would very well give you that answer. So they had to take it out and then censor some of the responses, so on and so forth. The next question we must ask is, what does this product add to our practice? Does it really add something? I mean, initially, everything is very fancy. It feels very good. But then one of the questions we must ask is, does it really add anything to our practice? Another important point is, what is the understandability and explicability of the recommendations? For example, your patient might actually ask, okay, why this and not any other course of action? Why this medicine and not that? In which case, I don't think an answer that says, there's a machine that has been trained and that told me to give this is going to suffice. I suppose there will have to be certain amount of, it must be explainable. Another very important point is who has the data? So now you've got the product and you're feeding it new data and taking the output from it. Is this data actually leaving your machine? Is it going to someplace? Because as we already know, these models during the training phase require a large amount of computational power. So it never happens locally. It invariably happens in clouds, right? So at the level now, you train the model and then you start giving it data which doesn't have a label. That's the point where you're doing something called inference. You are asking it to predict for the new data. Does this inference occur locally on my machine? A good example would be the word processor of the Word, Microsoft Word. As you would have seen with the recent iterations, it has started giving you quite complicated suggestions. For example, too wordy. It's one of the errors that it gives, too wordy, and it squeezes the sentence into a smaller form. Now, this is AI. This is not rule-based. This is a deep learning model, but the model is running on your machine. The data is not being transmitted to Microsoft headquarters for processing and then sending you back an answer. So that's another question that we must be asking. And certainly legal implications. It's a completely so to say, charted territory. But I think a simple rule would be the doctor is responsible for the decisions that the doctor takes. They rely on a machine learning model, or they rely on their next of the colleague, or they rely on existing literature. That doesn't matter. I suppose the responsibility rests with the doctor. So coming to the summary of it, I think some things that we need to keep in mind is there can be a variety of models, but a good way to think is it a risk prediction model, which is generally classificatory models, right? Or is it a recommendation model? Or is it a generative model, which is being used for extracting some information or generating new content that does not exist, right? A number of risk prediction and recommender models are being incorporated into clinical decision and support systems. So, for example, many of us are using UpToDate. Now, UpToDate is nothing but a clinical decision and support system. As of now, it's symbolic AI. If medicine 1 and medicine 2 go back to the database and check, do they interact? If they interact, tell the clinician on their phone, don't combine these two. That's what it's doing right now. But there's right now a testing version of CDSS, which is using deep learning technologies to give the best course of action in emergency settings. So the risk prediction and recommender models are already coming in day-to-day clinical practice. In oncology, they are pretty much a part of clinical practice. And lastly, we will have to have some acquaintance with, we will have to dirty our hands a bit in terms of knowing how these models work, where were they trained, where is the inference happening. And unless we do that, we will not be in a position to evaluate, are they adding something to our practice as of now or not? So thank you. Thanks again. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shukla. That was well in time, very well put. And it was very nice and soothing and calming to hear you because it makes the subject that much more acceptable. And for those of us who are technologically challenged, a little bit more lucid. With this, with the permission of my co-chair, I'll hand over the session to the moderator to handle the Q&A session. Dr. Umesh?
Thank you very much. It was indeed an excellent session, perhaps. So we wish to seek your feedback as well. And there are a few questions in the chat box. So sorry to keep you waiting. So there's a question to Dr. Noorul. Where are we heading in the fourth wave?
Be the complete human models, which are very much excellent in abstracting. That's what I feel, but still they are in the process. I request Lekhansh sir to give his idea on that.
Very briefly, I think the major buck right now is in something called transfer learning. For example, what I just used the Google Bart for extracting information from a clinical note. It is not designed to do that. It was designed to just predict the next token, but I could use it. Now I could further refine it, and these are available open source. If I have enough GPU power, if I get the grants that I would rather love to get, then I will use their model, which is already slightly intelligent because it has ingested every written word in English language. And I will then show it very little data, which is my domain specific. And with just little data, it will become very good. So that's what transfer learning is. You are learning you're transferring some bit of learning that has already been done. So I think transfer learning is where the major breakthroughs are going to come from now.
Okay. Thank you. And you excellently mentioned about the negative implications of AI use in psychiatry. I mean, could you please provide a nutshell of the same, like, for the benefit of our viewers?
I think more than negative implications, I would say the dangers that we face. And Noor did a very good work of summarizing how AI can amplify misinformation, and that is through social media, etc. Till now, just remember, say till about a year back, there would have to be a real human being sitting in the office of a big tobacco company, writing misinformation to entice young people. Now they just have to tell ChatGPT to do it. So it becomes so much easier, so much cheaper to do it. So that's the first part of it. The other part of it, the second negative aspect that we are going to see is we will increasingly be called in question about what we actually do in terms, especially about language-based, or all therapies are language-based. I mean, language is the only window we have in terms of looking into each other's thoughts. So that is going to come into substantial attack and question.
All right. Thank you. And I'd like to club two questions. AI and ML, its current use in practice, as well as will that take away the jobs?
Noor, you take it.
So currently, for the major data processing analysis, the robust use of AI is being done. But in terms of assisting apps, we have gone way ahead in terms of assisting people at the time of crisis. But whether it completely replaces a clinician is, I don't know how to explain that. Lekhansh sir, any ideas?
I don't know. And plus, I like to avoid this thing because it's a bit of a doomsday scenario. No, it's kind of a cliche. AI will come and people will lose jobs. Certainly, people who were till now just doing one thing, and that was to write inane articles or inane text, they are certainly at risk of losing their jobs. That we can say.
All right. Thank you. There are a couple more questions. Is it heading towards something like a behavioral addiction if we start continuously using these health apps or maybe AI supported apps?
Yeah, the answer is very clear. We have already started seeing such cases in terms of ChatGPT, or in the Western side, the Ashley's dating app. They have a separate chat bots for interacting with the mail. So we are already on that. So we are struggling to how to do therapy for them. So apart from the pharmacotherapy, so because there's a very much artificial intelligence infused app, so our therapies are again falling short in handling that. So we are struggling in that phase.
All right. So with the permission of chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So suppose now people are into this chatbots, and therapy sessions have been like some of the countries, perhaps they might be doing. I'm not sure about India. So what is, I mean, how do you foresee these things in the future, like therapy going on with the help of a chatbot?
That's for Noor.
Yeah, for you, I think.
Okay. I think this is already being done. See, when we actually go to a number of these sophisticated websites, and the bot opens up and then it guides us through various stages, that is nothing but an AI-powered bot. There are major legal restrictions in using this app or using this technology for delivering real therapeutic content in most of the developed countries. To my knowledge, it is, I do not know. I searched for it a lot, but we don't have something like HIPAA or anything that prevents people from trying to do it in our country. And I believe it would very soon be done.
Thank you very much.
Lekhansh, sir.
Excellent presentation. Over to, I think.
Dr. Lekhansh?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I have one doubt. Through the evolution in the field, we have slowly accepted using Grammarly. So we are not guilty about how the way we write, how the way we phrase, and slowly we accepted Grammarly. So in that context, so we can write an abstract or we can write a data through the ChatGPT forum. So in that context, so is there any efficient models from artificial intelligence network to delineate the original data and ChatGPT derived data? So at what extent we can allow this kind of literature work?
I think it's kind of trying to chase our own tails. Let's not forget that ChatGPT is trained on all published literature. So with the right prompts, it can reproduce exactly human-like. In fact, all the talk is human-like. I think it's mathematically and logically impossible to delineate outputs from large language models from outputs actually written by somebody. And therefore, initially the Turnitin actually switched on the AI detection thing, but there were so many false hits that it had to switch it off. So so junk text is we are going to be drowning in it, quite certainly, if we are not already. So there's one question that Professor Basu has asked, if it's okay with the moderators, I could very briefly respond.
Sure, please go ahead.
So Sir has asked that GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. What does the last word mean? Sir, the transformer's job is to convert that sentence into a numerical representation, also embedding the context. For example, let's go and seize the day. Now, this would be converted to a numerical representation by creating a dictionary. Let's say, let's become 1, go becomes 2, so on and so forth. And the whole corpus would be done like this. And the context would also be embedded into it. So to say, transformers transform text into numerical embeddings, keeping the context in mind. That's why they are called transformers. Right, over to you, sir.
Over to the chairpersons.
Thank you. Dr. Vinay Kumar, President IPS, has raised his hand. I'm not sure that's by error or by design.
Not exactly. I wish to congratulate both the speakers. For the first time, I heard at length about what AI and machine learning is. Excellent presentation, preservable. It must be uploaded on IPS website. So I request the specialty section to preserve. One thing I must share, but in the beginning, what I said about my anxiety and regarding AI, Lekhansh has almost confirmed that. So there is a challenge for human brain, basically, and ultimately we have to rely on human brain. Definitely, computer and AI and machine learning things can be used in research with a controlled kind of system. So everything is under control, then you can analyze and use. But for society, using in day-to-day practice, it's going to be a kind of disaster. So another challenge for us. Every day, new things are coming up, and every day we are getting a new challenging area. So it's another challenge for us. Thank you very much for enlightening us. A great day, great presentations. Congratulate from the core of my heart. Lekhansh and Noor, excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vinay Kumar. Dr. Basudev, sir, because I've been chatting a little too much.
Congratulations to Dr. Noorul and Dr. Lekhansh for an excellent presentation. And it was a learning experience for all of us. And what Dr. Lekhansh was talking about, that since we do not have big data as of now. So transfer learning can be the solution for the time being. What is required is about, we are talking about AI. Now in future, we need to talk about AW, that is artificial wisdom. So maybe a lot of work needs to be done. So since we are already overshooted the time, I would once again like to congratulate both of you for an excellent presentation. So what do you, Rukseda?
Thank you, Dr. Das. Again, because we've really run out of time and we don't want to keep people away from their lunch. If nothing else, that may endear me to them. Wonderful presentations. Thank you so much for involving me in the entire session. The entire experience has been very great because the task force has literally held our hands throughout the entire thing. As far as machine learning and AI is concerned, just like with every a new technology or every new progress and evolution, I remain cautiously optimistic. And I think both words here are important for us to kind of take home. With every step forward, it's going to bring its own unique sets of solutions as well as problems that it's going to create, and we are going to have to evolve along with it. So I think, the path of least resistance might also be very, very good here for us to keep in mind. But yes, definitely not go to the extreme where we are getting scared, oh, the machines are going to overtake us, or that, oh, we want to shut down everything and we want to go back to pencil and paper. So with that in mind, I think it's interesting for all of us to take something back home, even if we've learned one new thing about AI and machine learning today. That's definitely increased our knowledge of mental health and psychiatric care. With that, again, thank you very much to both of the speakers. They've done a wonderful job and increased my knowledge as well. And thank you for listening to all the participants. And once again, a huge thank you for the organizers. And with that, I hand over the sessions to the moderator.
Thank you very much, ma'am and sir, for your valuable inputs. Now, I request our honorable chairperson of the task force, Dr. Paneerselvan sir, to give his concluding remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Umesh. Excellent deliberation by both the speakers. Thank you, Dr. Umesh. Thank you, Dr. Umesh. It's an excellent deliberation by both the speakers. Both the speakers, Dr. Noorul as well as Dr. Lekhansh has done an excellent meeting, excellent deliberations. More than 200 participants there in this Sunday. It's a very huge numbers. And many obvious of Indian Psychiatric Society, our president, the secretary, and many senior psychiatrists also present. It's a very great honor for us. And I thank our team, the Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning team of Task Force team for good cooperations. And thank you very much all the participants. And also I thank Pharma for giving the link. Thank you very much. Thank you all. We will see you in the next our AA webinar.
Thank you so
Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Thank you all, madam. Thank you, chairpersons. Thank you all the speakers. Audience, thank you.
All. Bye-bye.